Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, my name is Linda and I'm a product designer from Toronto. First and foremost, I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the holidays as much as you could during these crazy times. We survived 2020. I think that's a great accomplishment on its own, but now let's tackle 2021. So weird to say, but this is where we are. I don't know about you guys, but for me, last year was a crazy one. So many ups and downs, and just so much has happened in my personal and my career that I would love to share with you guys. So for today's video, I'll be letting you guys in on what I learned as a product designer in 2020. So let's get right into the video. So before I start listing out all the learnings, I want to give you guys a recap of what my year looked like. So beginning of the year was great, full-time job as a designer. Up until March, I actually quit, and that's because I wanted to progress in my career and I wasn't really getting that at my current company. So I took that risk and I quit, thinking that I'd be able to find another job soon after. But of course, COVID came, ruined everyone's plans, and that's kind of where things went downhill. But fortunately, I was actually able to land a contract gig at another startup in Toronto as a UX researcher. So the reason why I went to research is because I wanted to see if I wanted to specialize it in it and maybe continue that as my career. Soon enough, I realized that I actually really enjoy the whole design process itself and not just research, which is why I wanted to move on and find a full-time job somewhere else where I can actually be able to experience the whole thing. So from June to I guess September, that's when I really started looking for jobs, job hunting, getting rejected left and right. Very normal for everyone during COVID. And this is where I learned a lot in terms of knowing who I am, my worth, really learning the skills that I needed to have to, find another job. So I'm really grateful that I had this time off, I would say, in order to find myself and kind of where I stand as a designer. And then in September, I landed a contract job at a tech agency in Toronto, there as a product designer, and then eventually that turned into a full-time role in November, I believe. To summarize the year, it started off pretty shitty up until I guess almost the end of the year, where it really turned around and I was able to find a full-time job. So I'm super grateful and really happy about all the experiences that has happened to me, both the good and the bad. Now, what have I learned from all of this in 2020? To start off with personal learnings, there are two things that really stayed with me, and the very first thing is to stop comparing yourself. Throughout the year, I had really bad imposter syndrome where I felt like I was never good enough, lots of self-doubts, and then just start to compare myself with such successful people in the industry, people who work at Uber, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And I was just so consumed by other people's lives where I wasn't able to really reflect on my own. So when I was unemployed for a couple months, I kind of had to force myself to really be in tune with how I feel and my emotions, and that's when I really understood that everyone has their own story, everyone has their own journey and kind of the pace that they work at, and the more I focus on myself, the faster I can be to be where I want to be in the future. The second thing that I learned is to slow the F down. So if you guys know me, I'm a very impatient person who likes to get shit done and see results. I'm a very go, 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 work in fast-paced environments, and I've just always been like that my whole life, always worked in that space. So this year was a little bit different where COVID forced me to slow down everything in my life, especially being unemployed, and that was a time where I got to really self-reflect on my work process and kind of the quality of work that I was producing, and realize that when I actually took more time and put more effort into something, I saw better results. Pretty common sense, but obviously it took me this long to realize. So I'm really glad that I was able to have that time to understand that everything takes time and effort and everything happens for a reason. Now on to career learnings, and because there are so many things that I've learned, I'm only going to be covering the 6 most important ones that have changed the way I work now. The first one is to always keep learning, and I think this is really important in the sense that with our career, we are constantly learning. we have the opportunity to constantly learn, and this directly correlates to how successful you can be. So I realized that the more you work on your craft every day, the faster you can excel in your career. The second thing is to not only ask enough questions, but the right ones. So believe it or not, there is such thing as dumb questions. As designers, our job is to understand people and understand the problem we're trying to solve for. So when you're not asking enough questions to users or stakeholders, at the end of the day, it's not helping you. It's not helping you understand what you're working on, understanding the why. And then for asking the right questions, it goes hand in hand, where you could be asking 20 questions, but if those 20 questions isn't answering what you need to know, then what's the point? So I think this is really important when you are working on a project and dealing with people. The third thing is to stop blaming but self-reflect. So throughout the year, I would find myself in positions where sometimes projects don't go as planned or they're not as successful, and this would put me in a mindset where I would start blaming others or even really blame myself, and it would just stop there, nothing more. But as this maybe happened a bit more, I was very frustrated with how I was feeling, and it was just very negative. So I try to turn that around by actually reflecting on past projects and understanding what went wrong. I ask questions to myself such as, what could I have done differently? What could the team have done differently? And once I started to think like that, my mindset shifted in a way where I started to be more proactive on finding solutions rather than blaming myself or others. The fourth thing I learned is to be open and flexible. As you guys know, design is an iterative process where things are always changing. It's never done and it's always improving. So within the year, I noticed that I got really attached to my work and the designs that I was working on. And that's because, that's the only thing that you're seeing every day and putting your sweat and tears into. So I get it, it becomes your baby. But once that's shipped off and starts getting implemented, usually it doesn't come out exactly the way you want it to, and it can really hurt your feelings if you're super attached. So it's really good if you kind of open your mind and be open to changes, because changes are good and sometimes it can be even better than what you designed in the first place. The fifth one is be ready to back up your work. And this was one of the bigger learnings this year, where I realized that a big part of our job is to be good at articulating your design decisions and rationale in everything that you did. And especially because I was always involved in presenting my work to stakeholders or big decision makers, I had to be good at this and realize that I kind of had to do this well in order to get my design shipped. And this comes with practice, of course. Practice communicating and practice being able to kind of convince your designs. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's all part of the process in terms of being able to communicate your thoughts to non-designers. And last but not least is to involve the engineers as early as possible in the design process. So I learned this the hard way, where I was on a project up until the implementation part, where then the engineers came on board to start coding it. Once they did, there was a lot of hand-holding of me explaining certain interactions or certain designs, and another thing was that some things were not feasible to do. So kind of sucked that happened at the very end of the process. So to prevent this from happening is if you involve them earlier in those initial meetings or crucial design meetings, they understand and have more context of what you're working on, and give you an idea of what's feasible and what's not. So this saves you a lot of time at the very end of the day, and is just more helpful for everyone else who is involved in the process. As you can see, 2020 has been a year of ups and downs, but I could not be more grateful of all the experiences that I've been through. Without that, I would not be where I am today. And it has helped me to grow into a stronger individual and a stronger designer who is more aware of how I go about my work. So some things are of a stronger mindset now, better work ethics, and ultimately better quality of work. So I urge you guys all to reflect on your own year as well if you haven't done so already, because I promise you once you do, not only will it make you feel better, but you'll see how much you've grown as an individual as well. Now let's kick some ass for 2021. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up, comment and subscribe, and of course hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!